What is going on, Snooker fans, and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably been suffering with a really bad cold for the past few weeks, and I don't know about you, but I don't think there's anything that signifies more the proper start of a snooker season than that first cold of the year. You know, when you start to get that sore throat, that sniffly nose, that's when you know that all you should really be doing is sitting in your living room and watching snooker all day. We were treated to another good tournament last week out in China. And you know, after a turbulent couple of years for Chinese snooker with the match fixing scandal that came out involving several top players such as Liang Wenbo, the UK champion Zhao Xingtong, Masters champion Yan Bingtao, last week represented a very good tournament for those from the Far East. Not only were there two men from China competing in the final, there were three players from China in the semis, and four made it to the quarterfinals, just to further strengthen what we already know. And that is the future of this sport seems more and more likely to come from China. And let's start with the champion, shall we? Xiao Guodong won his first ranking title in his 14th season as a professional and played a level of snooker last week we've not really ever seen from him before. You know, around 2013, Xiao was heavily tipped to be China's next big star, along with Liang Wenbo, especially when he reached the final of the Shanghai Masters in 2013, losing to Ding on that occasion. But he never really managed to kick on from there and became the literal definition of a journeyman. He was a player who never really looked in danger of falling off tour, but also never really looked capable of someone that would be a top 16 player or a tournament winner. But that all changed last week. The first match I watched of him last week was his thumping win over Shaun Murphy in the quarterfinals. And that really was an unbelievable performance from him, where he started with 3 centuries in a row and just completely froze Shaun Murphy out of that match. By this point, he had already beaten the world champion Karen Wilson and Barry Hawkins, so it had already been a very good week for him. Going into the semi-finals and, the first half of that semi-final, it looked like he may have run out of steam, but he managed to come back and turn that around. And then despite a late comeback from Jiahui, it was a pretty rampant performance in the final too, to land his first ever professional title. He is also just 35 years of age, and it's around that age that players like Stuart Bingham and Barry Hawkins landed their own first titles. And we know that they both went on to do bigger and better things in the game. So there's every chance that this could happen for Xiao too. The floodgates could start to open. And not only will he have the confidence from landing his own big title for the first time, he also showed signs that his game had gone up a level. And then moving on to Jiahui, and it's been 534 days since he surrendered that massive lead against Luca Brissell at last year's World Championship. A match that I've referenced many, many times on this channel. And, I definitely thought at that point that was going to be a loss that would be very tough to come back from. But if anything, he's grown from that experience. Last season, he reached a semi-final and a final, and he made it back to another final last week, which included arguably a career best performance in the semi-finals to dismantle the best player in the world, Judd Trump. And that performance also included his first ever career 147. Unfortunately for him, he didn't really get going in that final until it was really too late. And he may look at that as potentially an opportunity missed when you consider he was playing against another player who had never won a tournament before. But when you look at the progress this young lad has been making over the past 18 months, you have to fancy that he'll get plenty more chances to land silverware in his career. Long Hong also had an impressive week, getting to the semi-finals, and when he was 4-1 up against Xiao Guodong in that semi-final, he looked good money to make it to the final as well, especially after knocking in a 1-4-1 break in that match, which at the time was the highest break of the tournament. Really good week, but as is the case with so many players like Long who make these kind of breakthroughs, it's all about whether he is maybe just a one-trick pony or whether he can kick on. But there should be plenty of positives to take from his results last week. And then there was also home favourite Ding, obviously the player that all of the players I've already mentioned in this video have always looked up to in their career. And he looked good at the start of the week before losing to an inspired performance from Chris Raikling in the last 16. There wasn't really much that Ding could do. He didn't do an awful lot wrong in that match. It was just Chris played out of this world snooker to beat him. And look, Ding is overdue a title, and I really do hope it comes from him very soon. But after the disappointment I'm sure he felt with the actions of some of his fellow countrymen in the past couple of years, I think ultimately he'll be very happy to see young Chinese talent still thriving on tour. And obviously he's still playing well as well, still in the top 16. And like I say, I don't think he's too far away from winning a title. You know, he got close a couple of times last season, particularly at the UK Championship. I still don't think his game is at, you know, the absolute top level that he can produce. But he's getting there, he's getting close, and I do think something's going to land for him at some point. But there is also one player that I want to talk about and finish this video on, and that is Jack Lisowski. Jack, because, you know, it's the same old story with Jack. I've said it so many times on this channel that I've lost count. The amount of times that Jack Lisowski plays unplayable snooker at the start of a tournament, you know, he'll play 3 or 4 matches where he's playing the kind of snooker that not many players can produce. And you look at him and you think, God, he's just so talented. It's so amazing to watch him play like this. Surely now is going to be the time that he finally wins a tournament. And then suddenly he gets to a quarterfinal or a semi-final and his game just completely deserts him. It's not like his game drops down a gear. It drops down about 3 or 4 gears, and it's so frustrating to watch. I remember a UK Championship where he dismantled Shaun Murphy in the semi-final, at quarterfinals, I think it was, and then came back to the next match and just never got going. And looking at him last week, he was making big breaks for fun. You know, look at the amount of century breaks that he made in the tournament. He was also making 70 breaks, 80 breaks, pretty much every time he got to the table. He was making a frame-winning break from it. But just as this is the story with Jack, he got to the quarterfinals. He played Long, who he would have been a favourite to beat in that match. And he just never got going. And it's so frustrating, like I say, to keep seeing that happen time and time again. Because look, I think I speak for the majority of snooker fans when I say that we all want to see Jack succeed and get the best out of his talent. But this mental block he seems to have must keep getting larger with every near miss that he suffers. And whilst I still believe that his time will come at some point, nothing can really be taken for granted in this sport. And these battle scars are only going to make things harder and harder for him.